Hi, this is an ongoing series. Let me just put into perspective that it is not just about the World Ayurveda Congress, not just about the presentation that I made there, not just about different mathematical aspects and science aspects that apply in terms of modern studies that we do to a traditional science of Ayurveda, but also about the world's only Prakriti assessment software, Scan, which deals with in depth, Srotas level physiological computations. And these concepts that we are discussing in this series on mathematical modeling on stochastic processes involved in Ayurveda looks forward to bringing those concepts on the table to everyone's understanding so that you can start using Scan for your understanding of your Prakriti. And we at Health Beyond Healing, at Ayurvedic Health Iceland, at Veda Mag Iceland, as a team, are around you to help you with ideal and most appropriate possible advices, barring human error, to enable you healthy living, healthy body, healthy mind, not just with nutrition, not just with yoga, but in totality a lifestyle. Keep watching this series, keep subscribing to this channel, keep sharing this series with people around, and I shall be proceeding further. Today's video is all about what was discussed in the last 2 days. Hi, in the last 2 days we discussed a couple of terms used in the World Ayurveda Congress presentation. One was stochastic, the other was Markov's chain. I am looking to elaborate a little more why these models or these methods become important to develop a model for Ayurvedic Prakriti evaluations. And as we look to go deeper, pick up other terms, and gain an insight into the deeper model that we are working at, working to design, ultimately what needs to be ascertained in the first insight now here is how does this apply. So the best part or the most important part, whether we are looking at any of the stochastic models, and why we consider Markov's chain, it is important to understand the nature of events of the factors that influence Prakriti. Prakriti is to be influenced by the geographical location of the person, the social environment of the person, the family environment of the person, the nature of profession of the person, then the age of the person, then the seasons, then the uh, vegetation in which he or she lives, and even the mental state of the person. For mental state and for physical state of the person, we have parameters that have been defined, being Sattva, Raj and Tam for the mental state, and Vat, Pitta and Kapha for the physical state. Each of these is supposed to be made up of the Panch Mahabhut, that is Kshiti or earth, Jal or water, Gagan or space, Pavak or fire, and Samir or air. In these five factors, three are more physical to replicate in terms of Samir or air, Kshiti or earth, Jal or water. Pavak or heat or Agni becomes a reflection where the transitions of one state to the other, solid, liquid, and gas, as you can see them, solid being Kshiti, liquid being Jal, Samir being the gaseous state. By the laws of states of matter, we know that these three states are intertransitionable. In most conditions, we also know from our studies that the states generally do not convert overlapping another state in between. So it is a process where something will start from solid, go to liquid, go to gas, and come back in the same fashion. Though it is possible that without having a liquid state in between, something can convert from solid to gas and gas to solid. This knowledge depends on ultimately the changes in energy, and those are thermodynamic properties. When we want to study thermodynamics, the modeling of the system becomes important because you are dealing with disruption of energy state. At the same time, you're also dealing with conservation of energy. That is the first law of thermodynamics, being that neither the energy is created nor destroyed. So, when I say disruption of energy, either it is highly active from gas and you are reducing the activity levels to liquid and to solid, or vice versa. In these conditions, the way energy transitions will take place has many probabilities. The path of conversion from solid to liquid on a scale or across a period can be any which ways. And when that is said, that means it can be intermittent heat, it can be continuous heat, and when you look at continuous or intermittent heat, the temperature becomes important. The dependence on temperature is important. When you look at the dependence on temperature, the temperature between these 2 points, when it was at solid and when it becomes a liquid, not necessarily is arithmetic or geometric, which means across this length there might be a point where the temperature is very high, there might be a point which is where the temperature is low, and then again a high, and then again a slightly low, a further low close to zero or the base, and again goes up. Because of this uncertainty, the rate of change becomes uncertain, and it is left to assumption that across the time frame of temperature 1 to temperature x, the change is assumed to be constant. Since the temperature range is not microscopic but macroscopic, and it's a long change, therefore the dependence on the previous state may not be important. So while we have two different scenarios, one that there is not a continuous trend, it is the reason why it is stochastic. At the same time, further explaining this, further extrapolation of the idea also lets us know, also informs us that this unevenness, this irregularity lends the idea that there are number of possibilities of this path being traversed. Since the possibility of number of paths is many, dependence on the previous point is not necessary. And what will become important in understanding is the change is from point 1 to point 2, and in between, whatever happened does not necessarily need to quantify as part of a mathematical computation. And at point 2, you can further go to a point 3 with the same idea that going from point 2 to point 3, there are a number of possible pathways, and whichever pathway it is adopted, the end result will be that you are at point 3. This arrival at point 3 now is independent of what it was at point 1. This is why Markov's chains, which are collection of many stochastic chains, is significant. So, bringing into perspective the factors that are influencing Prakriti, day and seasons are two very prominent factors which can be discussed very easily for anyone to understand. Now, day is a cycle of 24 hours, season is a cycle of 12 months. After 12 months, you arrive at the same point again. After 24 hours, you arrive at the same point again. And in those terms, the changes are very, very subtle, or in a mathematical condition, there is no change. But these factors influence each other, and once a third factor comes involved, that is, say, a change of location, there is a shift in time, there will be a shift in temperature. This shift in time, this shift in temperature will lead to change in pressure volume dynamics, which is an essential part of all thermodynamic computations. So while there were n number of complete cycles in the stochastic model, the change of location brings about the start of another cycle. And in between the 2 points, point here, the origin, and the point here, somewhere in between, when the geographical location changed, there was a transition. The internal energy of these two processes, the first one and at the location 2, will be different. Entropies of both these stochastic systems will be different, but the summation of stochastic energies across these systems will still be a 0. So this change from point 1 to point 2, depending on geographical transition, and then point 3 and point 4, further on across the different zones, will impact life processes. The entropies in those systems at those geographical locations will remain different. If you come back to any of the points from one of these points, again the entropies of the system become different. So there will be changes in the entropy, and it will be affecting the process of aging, which is a linear process back and forth. So it is not necessarily just that the curve is moving above or below the x-axis, but the probability is also that even the x-axis by itself is moving right and left. So no more there is a zero, but if this zero was moving, was a moving thing, and moving because if I was to plot a Markov's chain again and again, for every Markov's point there is a zero because it is independent of the previous state. So at every zero, the probability is now that I am moving right or I am moving left, which means essentially I am slowing down the aging process or I am accelerating the aging process. And a cumulative impact of such activities is a reflection on your metabolics. That is why many and most endocrinal conditions can be reversible. If I was to say that I have a condition, say diabetes or say thyroid, in terms of hyper or hypofunction, diabetes in terms of an insulin dependence and non insulin dependence. Now, type 1, that is insulin dependent, is something that is not reversible ideally. Now that we are talking about stem cell therapy and things, there is a possibility that even type 1 becomes reversible with out of the lab grown pancreas, say, being transplanted into the body someday or something like that. Those possibilities exist, and in those terms it will be a reversal on the time scale. Reversal because by the very inception of the idea, when the human body receives anything from outside, it reacts against it. The change of the environment of the body again is different. That change of the environment of the body or the homeostatic state of the body becomes a new stochastic process. So, this also can be used as an explanation to what happens with vaccination. What is immunotherapy? What happens when there are altered pH conditions for a short or a long term? And how do different organ systems react? Even the disease progression can be mapped on these principles. Like somebody has a type 2 diabetes, and two people in the same time zone, at the same age, in the same geography, get diagnosed at the same time for, say, type 2 diabetes. But still, the fact that one of them will develop a cardiac complication first and the another person will develop a, say, renal complication first is not really certain. If I was to say that diabetes has 7 possible complications involving different organ systems, the probability of anything happening after the formation or after the diagnosis, not the formation, I'm sorry, after the diagnosis of diabetes is 1 of 7. Let us assume that diabetes by itself was one of the 7 elements, if I was to, instead of say diabetes, a metabolic disorder. So now that I have diabetes, out of the 7 possible metabolic disorders, as an example, I have 6 different probabilities. So n minus 1. And what path is it going to take? From diabetes to heart, heart to kidneys, kidneys to joints to eyes, or it is going to take, say, from diabetes to joints, joints to eyes, and then eyes to heart, and then to kidneys, or something else. Any of the things coming in the first or the second order. This improbability becomes huge, and Markov's processes become more significant. because the number of probable pathways is very, very huge. The number of probabilities is very, very huge, and their product is how you go on to compute the ultimate outcomes. That being a long process over a time dependence, over a long period of time, becomes independent, and the final values that you arrive at going through any of these pathways is nearly the same. So, the importance of understanding these models or applying these models lies in prediction of future states, lies in prediction of probabilities that the disease progression is going to take. At the same time, as many complications you have arrived at, say a heart condition, a renal condition, and an ophthalmic condition. So the remaining probabilities among the seven as we started as a probable condition is only three. So that now the number of pathways possible to arrive at those threes is limited. This understanding can be said that even a layman has, or even a layman can, but the accuracy in terms of time frame is only possible to someone who understands and who has these practical models applied. So, bringing these together, bringing these possibilities, probabilities together is an aspect where mathematics plays an important role, and its application is where chemistry and physics become important in understanding. That is why I often say that medicine by itself, whether it is modern medicine or Ayurveda or any, is a mere application of science, other methods or other ideas of science. Now, before I end this short talk, there's one more thing that I want to point out, that knowing this probability is not a medical art. Taking a decision on this in the interest of the patient is the medical art. So, depending on this is essential because this will help your accuracy. At the same time, everybody should understand mathematics and physics and chemistry is a near impossibility. Some will, many will not. However, I look to make it easy, make it simple in my own efforts for anybody who does not understand these applications or implications. And for that reason, I do not really discuss the mathematical equations. Looking forward to discuss the next terminology tomorrow. Hope you keep watching these lectures, these short notes, and subscribing, sharing among your mates, people across, and help me share a version of Ayurveda which has least been discussed publicly. I would not say it has not been talked about. I would not say it has not been worked about. Maybe. I don't have references to say so. But definitely, it is not in the public domain, and I'm looking forward to bring these aspects to the public domain, so that a lot of misgivings that people have regarding Ayurveda being a science or not being a science, being theoretical, being philosophical, can be busted. Philosophy by itself stands on pillars of mathematics. Those who have studied philosophy would probably agree to my point that philosophical modeling, and when they do that for any of the realms of society, it has mathematical models involved. Once again, looking forward to your subscriptions, sharing, and talking about your questions. Sincerely, I would say thank you today. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow again.